Okay, I'm going to do an audio test. Let me know if you're in live chat if you can hear, only because this was an interesting hangout to set up. We haven't done live hangouts in a while in this manner. So give me a shout out if you cannot hear me. Hopefully you can hear me. No audio. I hear that. Good. Audio now. Okay. Wow. Okay. Very cool. Give me a few minutes. We're still kind of discombobulated here. Please feel free to share the link around, and we're about ready to go live in just about a couple minutes. All right, here we go. Thank you for those that are waiting so patiently. Um, Thank you. This is Thirsty Theist number 20. 20, I've been holding out. I wanted it to be special. And actually, at one point, a long time ago, I had Aaron Raw actually set up for 20, but I actually backed out of it. And that's a story for itself. But anyway, number 20 is very special because I have a special guest who also we've been pulling together for a community fundraiser for. And so it's my privilege to actually be sitting and visiting with Christina Blackfeather. Um, I like to give her all the titles of the Unburnt, the Breaker of Chains, the Lady Regent of the Seven Kingdoms, um, uh, the Conservationalists, uh, the Alliance Slayer, the Battle Master, the Black Harvester, the Blood Guard, the okay, wait, that's WoW. Like, but but anyway, I like to kind of joke because Christina likes to make dragons, and I think that's pretty fun. And so I was just doing a play on Game of Thrones, and I'm a super nerd, and so I do apologize. Thank you for indulging me. I'm done being obnoxious. Christina Blackfeather, how are you doing today?
Oh, here we go. I'm doing fine.
Oh, good. I was scared for a second because I thought maybe we couldn't hear you. And then I
No,
was like,
I was trying to find the unmute. I'm not that used to Google Hangouts. Um, yesterday I tested my second one. I had done one with Deconverted Man, and we were playing Minecraft, but that was like a year and a half ago. So I'm, not very used to actually running one, and it's been a while since I've been in hangouts with Shadow Heathens and a few others. So, just my skills are gone.
it's been forever. I haven't set up one in a while, and so everything's a little bit different. And so thank you for hanging in there as I got settled and tried to figure it out. But I'm so excited to have you. One of our audience members, Lobster, says pretty hat. Is it a
Thank you.
hat or are you just born with horns?
It's a hat. It's actually made by a company that does dragon puppets, and they call them drabbits. Actually, they're a mix of rabbit and dragon, and they have different articulations and stuff. But for a while, they made headsets for like Wiccans and stuff like that. And this was hanging on the wall in their booth at the Renaissance Festival, so I had to get the red one, and I added the. Got to find my horns on the camera. Added the beads down the sides, but eventually I'm going to have metal aluminum scales and crystals and stuff like that hanging, so it's mixed in with my hair, and yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I figured since I am the mother of dragons, I should have my horns tonight.
Okay, well, I like it. I like your thinking. So, I think the first time I ever noticed you in the Great Debate community was about the time when Steve McRae had made the GDC, and I think that's kind of when I noticed you. But I'm not quite sure when you showed up and how clueless I am, to who's who and everything. But can you let us know how you came to join the Great Debate community as a whole, not just that one little sub community? How did you stumble upon this strange and weird and crazy community?
Well, it all started with Brett Keane.
Me too. That was my first hangout, and I got kicked. I was called an atheist, and I was called a Catholic, all in the same breath. That was crazy.
Grampy Lobster says Irv needs to see my evil hat. Yes, he does. Anyway, yeah, it was Brett Keane and G-Man were in my first ever hangout that I ever did on YouTube. And
were you kicked?
No, I got to the point where first off, G-Man for a while was an anti-vaxxer, which really ticks me off. And we kind of got into it, and then Brett backed him up, and stuff was said like I should have been executed for vaccinating my kids and stuff like that. Well, I didn't realize also that I was coming down with stomach flu, so I was upset by that point, logged off the hangout, went in the bathroom and puked for a while, and yeah, so that was
wow.
And I ended
baptism by puke. Really?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Brett's had me back on a few times since, and he's been very nice about it and stuff. So, I mean, it is what it is. And G-Man and I kind of had made amends too. It's just, I'm still upset about the whole Jade thing, but it just keeps going and going. But he is what he is. And from there, I ended up somehow... Shadow Heathens had seen me on Brett Keane's and got me into his. And from there, I had met Paranor, who was in the GDC, and just went, I became friends with Shadow, and I became friends with Paranor, and I ended up, doing a couple hangouts with Steve, and several more with Shadow, and just kept going from there. And, I've talked to Fiona. I, cherish my time knowing Jade and stuff like that, and so it's been a fun ride despite losing Jade, but I've met some incredible people and I just love it.
Yeah, loss is something that is unfortunately a part of learning to love people, and unfortunately we did lose Jade, but I'm really glad that you've stuck around through the highs and lows, and it's been really neat to see you around and to just kind of see how you're able to weave in and out of groups that maybe not everybody would have the ability to do, which has been kind of fun to see. So really quick.
Von Hilton.
Right. You've been able to kind of weave more groups than I think I've been able to. But I did want to say one of the things that, obviously we tend to talk about is our positions and our worldviews and religious views. And I wasn't really absolutely 100% sure if you consider yourself a witch, a Wiccan, or a pagan. So how do you self-describe?
I'm kind of like in between all of that. What I had started out with was not going to church, never been baptized, but German family, a lot of mysticism, a lot of Native American beliefs mixed in. Because we were around horses, we had all sorts of people at the horse farm and everything. And so, mix of Catholicism. So one of my best friends after my last year in high school until he passed away was Dr. Malachi Martin, the author who wrote The Jesuits and King of Kings and Keys to This Blood and stuff. And he was really important in my life. And for a while I had wanted to be a nun and get into the Catholic Church, and he's like, no, you're not going to be happy doing this. Just avoid it altogether. Well, the thing is in school even, I got called a witch a lot. I had, in middle school, kids tried to set me on fire in the stairwell.
What?
Yes. From the local Baptist church at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And it just, I wasn't finding my place. I was trying to be something I was not. And then I had met my now husband playing Dungeons and Dragons in college. And he went, and after a while, he gave me this book called The Truth About Witchcraft Today by, what was it? Cunningham, right? Yeah, by Scott Cunningham.
Oh, good. I thought it was Nate Cunningham. That's a relief.
No. And I read through that, and I'm like, that's me, And at the time, I was married to a Catholic. Lops just says I'm fireproof. Anyway,
I believe it. That's why I call her the Unburnt.
Exactly. No, I was married to a Catholic, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, I'm not Christian, and I tried the Christian witch thing for a while, and that was kind of my transition into full paganism before I understood I'm pagan. That's it, But at that point, I had dedicated myself as a Wiccan, as a solitary eclectic. And I've stuck with that to this day. I had a crisis of faith probably a couple months ago, and that was like about 4 months of that. And so I still, I still hold on to my old Christian beliefs to some extent. Still hold on to my Wiccan ones. The coven that I attend occasionally, when I'm feeling good and stuff, is Alexandrian. But I've thought about going and getting fully initiated, but I'm at that point where it's like, do I want people telling me that I have to believe in something? Do I want people dictating to me where I need to be in my life spiritually, when I've never believed in people dictating to me how I have to believe?
Does that exist in pagan a community where,
yes.
or Wiccan community where people dictate that you have to do certain things a certain way?
Oh yes, because there's various traditions like the Gardnerian, Alexandrian, and several others where especially if you're initiated into a coven, they want you specifically that you have to do certain practices, you have to do spells, certain times of the month, certain phases of the moon, times of the day and stuff, and they will give you a very, very strict thing you have to follow. And then there's groups in Minnesota where I live that are not, that they think that transgender is bad, they think LGBT is bad, and they're very strict about that. Thankfully, the group I'm with is one of the few that we're open arms to everybody. But there's groups out there that are extremely, it's like they took Catholicism and put a witchcraft title on it.
Interesting. So LGBT, really, it's so funny because when I meet a pagan in California here, I live in San Diego, pagans tend to be such a grab bag of really what they're trying to usually express to me is that they're spiritualism and they're maybe earth people, and and it's so vague and so unrestrictive that it could really be anything. And so it's kind of interesting to hear that somewhere else is more of a exclusive situation. So it's really interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's different in state to state, and that's why actually some of von Helton's views in some pagan circles are not out of the question, believe it or not. And you know, thankfully not in the circles I'm in, but you know, where he's against this and against that, and it's just there are groups like that. And it is, again, it ends up being about control. And yeah, somebody, Ev Storm just said there's white separatist pagans too. Yeah. Where Aaron Ross says that atheists is like trying to herd a bunch of kittens. Paganism, under our blanket of paganism, is a bunch of kittens in a box with glitter balls. I mean, we're so disorganized. And you can have 2-3 pagans in this, you know, that you're not going to get the same answer out of them or the same set of beliefs, even within the traditions like Gardnerian and stuff, where they try to kind of just not say that they have, you know, that they believe something slightly different. So, you know, it's just we're all individuals, and that's the part of what I like about my religion is that it's mine, you know. And I incorporate science and things like that. I mean, it's really interesting. One of our things in rituals is to call the ancients and the saints. Well, I'm one of those. I'm calling our extreme ancients. I mean, we're such an old species in the first place, and our evolutionary history is so long that I just call the ancients. And it's beyond what everybody else does, because there is that reality of us as a creature, and that's, you know, when I'm in ritual, that's the part that I call on, as our very, very primitive selves. So I mean, there's just all sorts of different things to how everybody worships, and I'm kind of an oddball in my own way.
Interesting. And you said that you married a Catholic?
I had originally married a Catholic who's now a Lutheran.
Gotcha. I would imagine there'd be some conflict between a Catholic and a pagan married, but maybe not.
And yes, Char, I'm wearing Harley Quinn right now.
Harley Quinn.
Yes. But yeah, and my husband he leans towards Buddhism, but he's just more an agnostic is what he identifies as now. So, I mean, and my son is Catholic. My daughter is studying Satanism. So, you know, we're a pretty open household.
But you don't seem to have okay, so one time, and I always take things kind of like, you know, tongue in cheek. One time I ran into a woman who flipped out the first time she met me. She said that in another life, she identified as a witch.
Mm-hmm.
She said in another life, I was somebody that attempted to kill her as a vehement Christian. And that
wow,
somehow we met again in person, and she literally flipped out the instant I went in the room. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And you know, at that time I was more holy roller than now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's demon possessed. That's like that was my go-to, because she was going psycho on me. And they ended up having to ask me to leave. And I was just wondering, like, is this a thing? Like, is reincarnation a thing with some people? Like, do they think that or is that just that particular person?
I believe in reincarnation myself. The only thing is I don't take the Buddhism or the Hinduism look at it, where, you know, you start off as an insect and you know, you go up like that. I do believe that people and animals and stuff will go to place, Summerland is what I'm used to calling it. Probably a variation on heaven, actually, but they're there for a time and then they get reborn. And you have people that get bad people that are reborn, and their circumstances are not always the best when they come back. And you have the good people that are reborn and some that just never come back. And, you know, that's just my personal philosophy on it. I've had times where I've seen my own past lives, not very good ones. But when you run into people who say, oh, I was Cleopatra and things like that, you're talking to either a fluff bunny or a new ager who has no clue what they're talking about.
Who's
Yeah.
the actress from Steel Magnolias? Shirley Maclaine. Shirley Maclaine said that she was Queen of Sheba.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's always got to be famous people, and that's the thing that kind of gets me is you'll have these mediums and stuff like this that you're paying money to, which is a pet peeve of mine again. That'll sit there and tell you, oh, you were this famous person or you were this famous person. And it's like, okay, so you've done tarot readings for 75 people this month, and 50 of them were Alexander the Great.
Oh, of course, right? It's never like some poor peasant that died a horrible death while terribly in debt and forever a bondservant.
Yes, exactly. It's never that. It's just like the belief in totem animals or your spirit guides that a lot of people have. Oh, mine's a wolf, mine's this, mine's that. And yeah, you have various ones, but like one of my totems is a spider, and I'm terrified of freaking spiders, which had Ojibwe tribal elders laughing at me.
Are you like Batman and you just like you're terrified of this thing and you decide to make it your totem?
I don't know how that happened. But yeah, Christina Blackfeather actually comes from the Ojibwe in Duluth, Minnesota, and I've done beadwork for them and stuff. And so I had been given the name by the tribal elders up there, even though I'm full-blooded German, and I've had the DNA test to prove it. So no Cherokee or anything in me. That's for lobster.
So you should be kicking it with Odin.
Probably.
I know a guy named Ocean that likes Odin a lot.
There was one hangout Ocean was in. I just love listening to him. He is so interesting to listen to. And that guy's got a good head on his shoulders, and I just enjoy when he's in hangouts because he's studied a lot more than I have. I've studied a lot more medical, and that's kind of where my brain goes as a nurse, and then my art, and it's just, yeah, I'm not as dedicated to actually studying my religious background as much as he is.
Are you like the Christian that says they haven't read the Bible all the way through?
Yeah, and I was the Christian who had not read the Bible all the way through.
That's like a pet peeve of mine is someone gets on here and they're like, I'm an apologist, and they haven't read the Bible all the way through, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I get so upset. But that's okay. Like, I think it's different than saying, hey, I'm on a spiritual journey, as opposed to I'm instructing you on this.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's, for me, I think it's more a spiritual journey, and that's, my mixture of learning about science and learning about how things work. I mean, I had chemistry and physics and biology and everything in high school and computer science. Then I went on and had microbiology and more computer science and more physics and calculus in college. And so my brain is kind of a mixture of things, and it's just, I get bored with reading religious texts a lot, and that was part of my problem with the Bible. And then on top of it is, if I go reading some of these modern texts that like Llewellyn Publishing comes out with and stuff, I mean, hubby and I have books by Silver Ravenwolf. I've talked to Silver Ravenwolf, awesome lady, she's fantastic. I've talked to Selena Fox, and I've been in contact with other authors and stuff, and but it's their interpretation on old writings that they've looked at. And so it's like, okay, am I going to be taking their interpretation, or am I going to be looking at this stuff myself?
Yeah.
And, where am I going to glean more knowledge? Is going to the original source or listening to somebody else tell me what they think about it? Only.
Right. We have that same. I mean, it's different religion, but I mean, we often will study, and then we'll find all these apologists and things like that, and I think there's something to be said about reading it for yourself
Yeah.
without that influence, and then going through and kind of studying it both, because I do think that it will slant your view to one way or another. And with us, it's like, that's going to change your eschatology, and it's going to
Yeah.
change, whether or not you're a divine command theorist or not. It's going to change whether or not God predestined things or not, and that's the Christian realm. I'm assuming the pagan realm is probably just the same kind of complication of, like, if you listen to it, I don't really think a pagan apologist exists, but if you listen to like a pagan historian, I'm sure that it's got to be influential, like an apologist, perhaps.
Yeah, and there are some pagan apologists. I haven't run into too many, but
Ocean. I'm just kidding.
We do have people who try their indoctrination, though, too, and that's where part of my personal crisis had come from, was witnessing indoctrination at a pagan gathering, and it was like witnessing this being done to children, and I just took this step back, and I didn't say much to anybody about it, but it was just this kind of shock to me that I hadn't seen it to that level in my own practice or in the people that I'd been around. And it was kind of terrifying, because I understand that it's people trying to teach our religion. I mean, just the same as, Christians try to teach their own and stuff, but I still can't pinpoint what it is that just kind of set my skin on edge. And that kind of just made me sit there and go, what the heck am I doing? And it took me a while to get out of that one. So
That's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting how does one decide, what is indoctrination as opposed to teaching, and where is that line, divided? Because it seems like even if you take it out of the realm of religion and you put it in the realm of what's a cultural norm. So in California, it's a cultural norm not to smoke. And
yeah.
people are pretty judgy about smoking. Now, you go
Yeah.
anywhere else in the country, people freaking smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And
I ran into some people that smelled really bad
norm.
yesterday from it.
We've successfully indoctrinated people to be like, reciting, like, I don't want to kiss an ashtray, and no offense to anybody that's a smoker, but it's so ingrained, that I was trying to think of something that's out of the religious spectrum where it is sort of indoctrination. Is it truthful? Is it not truthful? But it's teaching something. So I guess my question is, where do you? I mean, you're a parent, and you talked about your kids going different ways. One's looking at Satanism, another one's looking at Catholicism, which are they're opposites of each other. Don't listen to the fundies; they're completely opposite.
Exactly. Well, according to the fundies, I'm a Satanist. I mean, which no. I don't actually know much at all about Satanism, so no. But we had an open household. I mean, my kids had gone to rituals with the coven with me, and I held some rituals even in my own house and stuff like that. But they also went to church, and they went to different churches, and they still went to church with their dad. And some weekends we just said, heck with it. We're just gaming, you know, and we'd be the whole family would be playing WoW here, you know, Troy and my kids, we'd have 4 computers set up and be doing raids on a Sunday or a Saturday, you know. And I let my kids explore their own way. And we had books in like Sherlock Holmes and the Odyssey and the Iliad and things like that, and lots of science, and so I just let them kind of find their own way. And in some respects, my mother had done the same thing for me. I mean, even though she was my uh, smoking pot is witchcraft. Okay. She was my biblical teacher. It's still, you know, I mean, we were watching Doctor Who, we're watching Star Trek, stuff like that. She'd sit there and she'd say, okay, so this is this story in this chapter of the Bible here. What do you think this could be? And of course, there's books by Edgar Casey and Eric von Daniken and stuff like that in the house. And these were things that I read regularly. And she was upset when I started studying Greek mythology when I was 12 because she thought that was going to take me away from being a Christian. Boy, was she right. But
then you were like, the door of paganism has been opened.
Yes, exactly. Clash of the Titans and things like that, you know. But
these gods are screwed up. They're attractive.
Yes. So
Dionysus is sexy. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah. So I just kind of I thought, you know, do I want to push my kids one way or let them find out who they are on their own, as long as they're not endangering themselves, as long as they're getting their school studies done. And my son is he's at North Dakota right now at the state university going aerospace and aeronautics. So I mean, my kids are, and my daughter's doing electrical engineering, and they're on their own and they're doing their thing. And so, you know, I wanted to make sure you got your grades down, you got, you know, you studied, you learned the facts, and where you go spiritually is your own thing. I'll show you mine, but you have to find yours.
Very cool. Does that make you anxious though as a parent? So like you have to go find your own path. I showed you mine, and some people say that there's some when you give freedom, you're giving people love in some way, some freedom to choose. Um, is there some apprehension though? Like if your son or daughter chose a certain religion or a certain belief system, are there certain ones that would cause some apprehension for you?
If it is a cult where they determine that they are not allowed to have contact with me anymore because of their religion, that would get me. I've had that kind of happen recently with a friend, and we're getting that straightened out. But that is the thing, because somebody tried that with me when I was little towards my parents. And yeah, Shar said I'd be afraid my kid would become an anti-vaxxer and a young earth creationist or a flat earther. My son says the horizon's curved from the cockpit. Anyway.
I think young earth creationism isn't that threatening. I really don't. You can still manage to be a doctor and do your job and still be a young earth creationist.
Yes.
You really can. But if you're a flat earther, you better not be a fucking pilot.
Exactly. But yeah, anyway, my thing is where, you know, you have somebody telling you, again, you can't see this person anymore because they don't share your beliefs. Or we're going to isolate you because you have to be this soldier of God and you cannot talk to your mother anymore, or you can't talk to your brother anymore because they're not what you are. Scientology, to me, that's that cultish behavior. I lost a friend in high school for Jehovah's Witness.
That was the next thing I was going to say. Jehovah's Witness does that, yeah.
Yeah, and that to me, that would bother me, because I'm there for my kids. That's it. I'm their mother, and they're my babies, even though my son's 6'4", and I'm 5.
Oh, you've frozen. If you can hear me, you are frozen. One of us is frozen. Oh dear. Stand by. We are still continuing. It just looks like we got a little bit of a hiccup here. I will go ahead and send Christina a message letting her know that.
My computer hates me.
Are you back?
Yeah, my computer freezes up occasionally. I apologize for that.
Oh,
Eventually,
okay.
next year, I hope I'm getting a new one. But
I know she feels. I was without a computer for a little bit. I finally have a laptop, and here I am.
yeah, hubby's laptop can't even handle the camera, so we had gotten him a computer and we're making payments on it. But his laptop's in my craft room, and I can watch the live chat while I'm, using my phone for video for the live streams. But that's about it, But this one it likes to freeze up. I love that Jello Shot said I'd been raptured. Actually, I grew my wings and flew. I have to make my dragon wings yet.
So hopefully not in another life. Hopefully I didn't burn you at the stake, because apparently that's what I did, according to that one lady.
You did?
That's what, I don't know. She was
that
making a big
lady.
deal.
Okay. Yeah. No, we get some people that'll come up to, like, we do Pagan Pride every year in our city, and we have sales booth and stuff, and we have people come up and they try to feel the energy of the items that we have on display, things like that. So I was part of what Von Helton did pissed me off for a while too, is because he was claiming that I cursed the necklace that I made for him and gave to him as a gift almost 4 years ago.
I need to hear about this. So first question is, do you do curses? And if you do, what is the criteria of said curse, and what would curse look like?
I've done binding spells. I haven't cursed people because that would be like me just going up and randomly deciding I'm going to go and punch somebody or something for no good reason. I mean, I still go by the "an ye harm none, do as thou will," which is kind of difficult being a nurse, because there are times I have to do harm in order to do good. But that is what it is. But to actually sit there and curse somebody is a harmful act, and I will not do that. However, I have run into people that I've done binding work on where they had been hurting somebody else, and I'm like, enough is enough. And it's just my thing. I am not going to say whether things like that work or not, because, well, I have, I feel they've worked, but to try and prove that to other people is another problem.
Right. Do you consider yourself? Yeah, some people divide, or they'll explain themselves as a white witch or a black witch, and they'll kind of divide themselves up. Do you have that division, or do I make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not a pagan, so obviously, if I'm speaking gibberish, you can stop me.
I consider myself more about balance, because we cannot have the good without the bad in the world. I'm going to try and do the best that I can and do the right thing at all times, as much as humanly possible. And that's what I live by, is to do the right thing and not have any regrets. And which is also not possible, but hey, I try. But the world does have to have balance, and there are Luciferian witches who practice the left-handed path, so to speak. That's what they call it, where they're doing black magic. They're trying to summon demons and stuff like that. I don't do that. Actually, I rarely do any spell work, anything like that. Once in a while I do prayer, and I have my spaces where I feel content and happy, and I'll go out in the woods and I just randomly sing while I'm walking or whatever, or meditate. And that's what I do. I have an altar that's kind of in boxes right now, because we had been moving things around in the house. I just haven't taken things back out of the box. I have these items that I like and stuff, but to actually sit down and do ritual, it's like I have so many other things I need to do. I don't have time for this. And so I guess I'm a bad pagan in that respect.
Ain't nobody got time for this.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot. A lot of people, it's writing rituals out, it's planning things, it's again making sure that stuff is done at the right phase of the moon and the right time of the night and stuff like that. And it's like, if I feel like I need to do a ritual, even if it's just for myself to get myself centered, I'm going to do it when I need it. I'm not going to sit there and live my life by this calendar when I already have a work calendar with patients that I have to make sure I'm there, and kids and all this other stuff. I have things to do, that are more important in my life right now.
So, when you look at your religious beliefs, obviously, I'm not looking for empirical evidence because I think this is a metaphysical claim and a faith claim.
Mm-hmm.
But on your spiritual path, what has been some of the biggest benefits of your spiritual path, and what has been some of the harder parts of your spiritual path?
The biggest benefit I think I had was surviving my divorce, which went almost 3 years. And after my kids were born, I had very severe postpartum depression, things like that. And I was in an abusive marriage. And I think the night that I dedicated myself as a Wiccan, and it's the 21st of December, and I just lit the Christmas tree, and I have my baby daughter in my arms, and I'm dancing around and singing. Oh gosh, I can't even remember the song now. It's by Lorena McKinnett. But I'm sitting there and I'm singing with it and just dancing around with it, and it was like this freedom. I have my baby in my arms. And it's like I had this realization of where I wanted to be, but I still was fighting the circumstances and fighting my sense of hopelessness for such a long time that I didn't. When the divorce started, it was like all of a sudden, hey, I'm a little freer to think the way I want to think and to believe the way I want to be and practice what I want to practice. And so my religion actually, or my religious beliefs actually helped me survive that. My beliefs in the gods helped me survive that. And my husband was horrible. He was using the court to try to get at me. In Minnesota at the time, just like in Oklahoma, there was another couple where the woman was Wiccan and the father was Catholic, and their divorce involved him trying to get the children away from her. I had the same thing happen here in Minnesota. And so we had the guardian ad litem, and I'm having to defend myself in court as Wiccan. So I'm legally out of the closet as anybody's going to get, because it's on the court documents. Those are public record. But once I got on my own, it was such a freeing thing for me, because I had, throughout that entire time, I had this strength I wasn't aware I had, and I had never lived on my own before. I went from my parents to marriage, and I started accomplishing things that were, it was me, and it was me doing these things, and that provided me a lot of strength. The hardest thing would have to be during the divorce, when I was having my religious beliefs used against me to try and take my kids away.
It's interesting because religious persecution is something that people feel no matter who you are, if you're the odd one out in the situation. So if you are the wrong kind of Christianity, if you are an atheist, in the Bible Belt. If you are a Wiccan in an area that typically is not familiar with it, like if you are the odd person out, you can experience some sort of persecution, and it's never just one type of religion. It's just if you are the minority, and when you get tested like that, either one or two things happens. Either you become stronger in your belief system, or you dissipate and you disappear. And so you find that in the end, after all that, it made you stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. And so I've been able to be there for other people, and even when I walk into a house, like I have, I've worked in Muslim households. I do pediatric home care, critical care level, so all my kids are on life support. I do in-home dialysis, IVs, the whole 9 yards, respirators, all of it. And I currently am working in a very fundamentalist household, but I love these children, and these families actually know about my religious beliefs, and it usually comes out by accident. Or they see the pentacle on my car. But I've even had Baptist preachers that thought it was awesome because, here I am, their nurse, I'm taking care of them, and they think it's cool, because I'm doing my job, I'm doing it right. I have, I try to have compassion and empathy towards people. And to me, that's what matters. This planet is hard enough for all of us to live on. It's stupid to be fighting over religion. It's stupid to be trying to push your beliefs on other people. We have a hard enough time as it is, altogether, as a species. There's people sick. There's people that are homeless, which I know that experience too. I was homeless for a while. There's enough problems on this planet. We don't need to be creating more for ourselves.
Gotcha. Yeah, there are a lot of things that we can definitely, get together and help on. And I think that there are some things that supersede religious belief. I think most of us can agree on some very basic things, like most of
Night,
us,
Eve.
uh, most of us agree that we should try to alleviate people's suffering. Most of us agree to very basic human rights, and those things I think can supersede those religious boundaries. So I like to say sometimes, like, I don't necessarily always look at a atheist, for instance, as absolutely opposed to me on everything, because there's many atheists that I can um, partner up with on certain things, with certain um, charities and things like that. And so oftentimes I find that I can partner up with, say, a humanist
Yeah.
who happens to be an atheist. And so I do think that's interesting that there's some things that can supersede dogma um, and belief. So it's kind of interesting. I did want to kind of segue awkwardly. Um, uh, one of the things that I've always noticed about you is you're quite the artist, and you seem very eclectic in the things that you do. One of the main things that you like to do, or one of the things that maybe just caught my eye, is you make these handmade dragons, and that's why I called you the Mother Dragon, the Unburnt. You know, um, so these handmade dragons that you do, how many hours does your average dragon take to make?
The last one I made just did, or no, that was the Kyrin, was probably about, I don't know, 25 hours. I've had one that, my big one has taken me almost 6 months. I've got them right here. So yeah, it varies depending on the size. My large ones are, wired on the inside, and then I'm having to wrap the armature tight and then needle felt to that. So everything's all wool and wire for the big
Do you
ones.
have one that you can show us?
Oh yeah, just a second.
Rawr.
This is Snaggletooth. He is all wool except for the flower he's holding. And whoops. Okay. Yeah.
Snaggletooth probably needs to be backed up a little bit
Yeah,
closer
there
to
he
you,
is.
right? There
Okay.
you go.
Yeah, so he doesn't have any wire in him, so he's not posable. This little guy took me about 10 hours, I think maybe 12. And so there's no styrofoam or anything. This is all wool, except for his little silk flower, because he's sorry.
Just to kind of give you an idea, I used to work for the San Diego Zoo, and we had these expensive lions that were made of wool, and like other animals, and they would actually hand stitch them and stuff. These things were like really expensive because they're collector items and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was kind of watching how you were doing it, and it seemed like a very similar technique with the armature and just the detail work you put into it. Um, do you have like a certain inspiration that you tend to follow, or
I see it in my head.
you have a
That's my
vision where you just
inspiration.
kind of go for it?
I go for it. Yeah, with anything I make. I'm really terrible that way. I can look at a person and see them in a painting, but they're not always human when I paint them, or something like that. It just depends on what goes through my head. I dream a lot of weird shit. Um, and there's sometimes, like, even if I'm trying to fall asleep before bed, I get this idea in my head, and then I visualize how I'm producing it, how I'm making it, and then that kind of just sticks. But it's also a form of meditation at the same time, I guess. But it works. So yeah, I end up doing things like this. This was inspired by my in-laws English Springer Spaniel when he gets in trouble. So you got the droopy eyes, like, oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Now that's not a dragon, that's a chimeran.
Kyrin.
Chiron.
He doesn't have the body scales. He's more like a little forest spirit type thing. Kind of mixed the deer and the dragon and all that together, but he took a lot more hours than Snaggletooth did, because
I like his side stripes.
Oh, I love the side stripes. He was going to have spots like a fawn originally, but the side stripes started by accident, and it's like, I love it. So yeah, and I will grab, I have a partially done armature, and then I'll also grab Cecilia, my biggest one.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love art, and there's so many different ways for people to express themselves, and her way is very unusual to make the little dragons and stuff like that. Do you tend to sell those at the Ren Fair, perhaps, or?
I'm hoping to. We want to get a booth going, and yes, I do have a Pinnacle shirt, but this is Harry Dresden related. Just so
Drag has a question. What is the exact label of your beliefs?
Eclectic.
Eclectic pagan witch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what I start out with, is wire, and then I wrap it with wool yarn so that it locks everything into place. And then I start attaching wool roving, which is just wool fluff. And I attach it with these barbed needles that are about this long. I just start poking into it. And I've said this on my live streams, is when you have any animal fiber, you put it in under a microscope, and this includes human hair, you'll see that there's the keratin looks like little scales along the fiber. So these barbed needles lock those scales together, and you can just keep packing them tighter and tighter. So this one I had started on, and I had made him too big. So this one's going to eventually be a red dragon.
He is big. Is he the biggest one you've made so far?
No, she's coming.
Oh gosh, and we're even getting bigger.
Oh. This is Cecilia. And she is my biggest one to date. She's very heavy, but we had her around the Minnesota Renaissance Festival this year. A lot of people trying to pet her. And she was also at Twin Cities Pagan Pride in Minneapolis, and there were people photographing her and everything else. She is fully posable because of the wire inside. And
her eyes are kind of feminine, like, because there's like the eyelash kind of thing, almost like Almost like giraffe eyes.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm enjoying the response I get from people for this. I mean, I love dolls and things like that. I always have. I didn't have a lot of stuff like that when I was little, and it's like since I've discovered needle felting and see how people react, and I'm learning to get all these expressions and things like that, and I just so enjoy it. And to see little kids and stuff how they respond to these things. But she can actually balance quite well with one hand.
Oh, how do you do the claws? I like the claws.
This is epoxy sculpt. It's a product that's an epoxy clay, and it comes in two parts, and you have to have it exactly even, otherwise you end up with something brittle, which I accidentally had with her, and I had to redo her claws. I sculpt it directly to the wire before I do any other work on the wire, and then I just paint with acrylics and glaze over after they've hardened, and it air dries, so I don't have to fire anything in the oven.
Jello wants to feel it. Is it soft?
She's very soft because she is all wool, and I use a mix of merino wool and sometimes alpaca fibers. I've used silk, actually silk yarn. So yeah, it's mostly merino and alpaca.
Alpaca.
Yeah, very soft wools. Alpaca's amazingly soft.
And they're cute too.
Oh yes, oh my gosh, they're so cute. There's a story behind her name though, because last year I had made Cecil, who was named by Deep Ashtray on Google Plus, by the way. So he was my first dragon like this I had made.
Oh, he's got like a mask, like a superhero. I like it.
Yeah. And of course, he's a lot less weight. I almost sold him, but he was also my first armature that I'd done, so he's not as strong as she is, and I couldn't justify selling him to the person. Because
what is he holding?
He's holding a strawberry. They're both garden dragons.
Oh, okay.
I'm working on some children's stories and of what things I find in my garden, and these little dragons are part of the thing that's there, and they eat fruit and vegetables, and their young get rotten, anything that's starting to get bad, or so that it's easier for them to digest and stuff. But they're pretty harmless little critters. She's the biggest that they'd ever get.
Very cool. They're totally cute. And you also do jewelry, right? Like
Yeah.
you do. Okay. Do you do just beadwork or well, I'd say it's freaking time consuming. Like,
Hubby does chainmail, although I do some. Let me put these two back here.
chainmail, that escalated quickly.
Okay, you go there. You go there.
I mean, Miss Stark could probably use some chainmail. She might have a visitor.
Okay, this is our wedding journal, and this was 4-in-1 that I had done myself, and then set it in leather. But usually my husband does the work, and so like this piece right here is called Dragon Scale, and this is like 3 or 4 colors inside of copper.
Oh,
so
wow.
There's multiple layers that he's done, and this one is a very time-consuming pattern. And I confiscated this one. It's mine. This, I think, this is the Japanese 6-in-1, isn't it? Yeah, this is Japanese 6-in-1. There's hundreds of chainmail weaves. And while mail had started with being decorative, and then it went to being armor, and then it went back to being jewelry, and now it's getting incorporated back into armor with Kevlar and things like that for various things, and including for motorcycling, is to have chainmail overlays to help protect from road rash if there's a crash.
Oh, interesting.
It's very, very strong. Of course, this is aluminum, so it's a lot lighter. The dresses that we've made have been all aluminum rings. Steel would be a lot heavier by far. So this is what an aluminum dragon scale looks like. And that's 2 colors. And again, that's hubby's work right there.
I like the 2 colors.
Yeah, I love dragon scale. It's my favorite. And then this is one that is actually up on eBay right now for this event. This is
Oh, wow.
bastardized Byzantine?
Byzantine ring mail.
Byzantine ring mail. And then, of course, we have it set with Swarovski crystals. I have it backwards, pardon me.
Oh, interesting how it's like so tight and then it's loose. Like it's,
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that exactly, but.
The altar cloth for our wedding at the Renaissance Festival in 2015 is done with this weave, but Troy had done Celtic knotwork and stuff into it, and I forgot to bring it out. It's packed away in a box.
Celtic, my people.
Oh, we had a public Wiccan wedding. It was fun. We had Methodist lay minister as my father-in-law. You know, we had all sorts of people from all walks there, and it was the best time ever. But yeah, this is our design, Elsa. And of course, I'm wearing Harley here, which is the same. That's the Byzantine ring mail. There's all sorts of weaves, but he likes to work a lot in Byzantine because it's done in these units of rings that are 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. And the way you flip the rings, it forms that little interlocking pattern on here. But you can get a lot of detail with it. And that's what he loves. Yeah, this is Char's piece. She wants this one.
Jordy's like, Charger piece. That's cute.
And then this one I had just finished for a customer on Etsy with their own horsehair. I do hemp a lot. I don't do that kind of hemp. Not yet. Not legal for recreational use in Minnesota.
Bro, if you're gonna do hemp, just don't get a gas mask like Shani, and you'll be good. like just puff and done. You know, not.
Yeah. But yeah, somebody sent me their horsehair, and so I went and I braided a hemp necklace with this. And I have another piece that I'm working on right now, which has got a Tibetan clay amulet in the center.
It's the amulet, Charlie, the amulet.
Yes, exactly. And no, this one won't be cursed. Since I am the witch that cursed Von Helton.
I mean, I can think of a couple people you could send a cursed item to.
And then I do some somewhat naughty things at the same time, like little bondage collars out of leather and cameos and silk and cotton lace.
Oh my gosh, someone showed Philo. Phalo Blue, whatever her name is. Look at that. Look at that.
Yep, Phalo Blue, yes. And this is the Swamp Witch, and it has a cat cameo, and I was inspired on this one too. This one somebody had ordered, and then they never bought it. So I ended up making it, and there it sits. But someday somebody's going to see it and go, hey, I want that. And if they never do, then I may want it myself.
Bondage is sort of a niche field.
A niche thing, yeah. I've actually had in one of the stores that specializes in that, I've had leather journals sell there and some jewelry and stuff. So yeah, and I kind of enjoy it because, you know, it's about freedom and stuff, and people, you know, as long as they're not hurting other people, you know, not without consent, you know, it is what it is. And I like to make pretty things.
What's your safe word?
Bondage gear started by accident. Because I saw this drawer pull with a lion's head on it. And I'm like, God, that would look so good with suede leather and lace. And I did the trick braid where you don't have knots in the braid. It's all done inside the leather strap. And I sewed the lace to it and the glass beads, and I put this lion's head in the center that had the ring on it, and I have a button in the back, and I put it on, and I showed hubby here, and he said, "Do you know what you made?" And I'm like, "No, it's cool. I love it." And then I found out what I made.
Oops.
And I've sold a few over the years, so it is what it is.
My husband's into off-roading, and all the YouTube channels that he watches is like off-roading or overlanding and building things, and he has a 93 Jeep. This thing is really fun, but I said, man, it's hard to get in and out of this thing. And so he went, and a guy made kind of online like making his own things. He makes these stirrups that go into the Jeep and you can grab on, so it's like the oh heck bar.
Yeah.
and you just grab on, and it's made out of this sort of paracord all wound up together. Anyway, yeah. I was all excited about it. I took a picture of it, posted on Facebook. I said, look, Scott got me a blank bar. And I want to say it was Gretchen, who's in our community, the yes. Orthodox Christian. She says, in my day, we called that stirrups. Like, oh, dear. Like S&M kind of thing. And I think she's just pulling my wig and teasing me. But I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it kind of does look like that. I didn't even think about it.
See, I'm used to two types of stirrups. You got the doctor's office stirrups, and then you got the ones on your saddle when well, I suppose that would apply.
Oh, yeah, giddy up.
And, well, anyway, the other thing that I do is I paint, and I am a My Little Pony fan, which is really bad. But for face painting and stuff too, I get a lot of requests to do My Little Pony face painting. But yeah, I have 3 of them right now, small ones like this that are on eBay, and we'll see if they go, or if they don't, they don't,
So just if you guys don't know, we are doing a fundraiser. You just recently have had a tremendous medical impact where you had to have surgery and things have been kind of in an uproar, and we wanted to try to alleviate that. So some people in the community, Tyler Durden and Shar and Jordy and several others, Vincent, all kind of went together and said, like, hey, let's do a fundraiser for you. But I like how it's been a fundraiser and it's not for nothing. We're trying to, everybody's trying to offer a little bit of something. Yeah. Whether it's some sort of content to watch, or you've been doing so many crafts on the side and amazing work, hours of work, and just the amount of effort that Shar and Tyler and everybody have put together with a list of things to watch. And so I definitely appreciate everybody's hard work. If you are able to donate anything, it can be any amount, we would really appreciate it because it's going for a good cause. I know that for myself in the community about 2 years ago, I had a horrible infection in my face. Like one of the worst places to have an infection. I had an abscess tooth that I didn't have the money to take care of, and I just let it go, and then it turned into cellulitis and just blew up. And I ended up having surgery to get it removed, and then also they had like some of the bone taken out, and they had to put some in. And so it was actually, I've broken bones and stuff like that before. This was the most pain I've ever been in my life. And I got to tell you, Dragnot, Annabelle, if you know Grooviest Thing, Gus Bellinger, a bunch of people chased me down and said, hey, we want to do a thing for you. And I got to tell you, for me, it was a life changer because I was in a really bad spot at that time. Yeah. Like a really, I don't even want to go into the details of how bad of a spot I was in. But because of that, I'm doing so much better. I can actually look at that point and thank the community for what they've done for me, because I am now in a better financial position. And so I do appreciate everybody for helping out on that. And so It does make a difference. I know that there are some fundraisers where you just feel like you're pouring into an abyss. But there are some people that they just get their foot on the ground and then they're able to climb, and life is better and they can pay it forward. And I know that I've been trying to pay it forward in this community, and I know many others have done as well. So I did want to give a plug out to that. Um, I know that we've been going on for about an hour or so.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you a question that I typically ask everybody in past Thirsty Theists, and it's if you wanted to encourage the community to grow in some way, or to have a goal, what would that be? What would that look like for you?
I like to see more science, honestly, and also more actual theology. Not sitting there, well, I believe you're going to hell, and actually people studying together and learning together, and that's my big thing. Yeah, and Vincent, I kind of got inspired with this, with you doing the dragon for you, and I'm going to continue after. If somebody else needs help in the future, I will be helping out as well, because I think that's important as well. We need to stick together as a community, and I think some of the damage that we had seen recently, Jade was a lot of glue that was holding us together, and after we lost her, it was like I thought the community was going to fracture and fall apart. I really did. I mean, and I tried to talk G-Man down. And I tried to, the mediator. I tried to get both sides working with each other, and it was just really hard. So I think that's the thing, is we should be about actual learning and science, math, theology, all of that, but also to remember that we are a community, and to be able to stick together and help each other out. And even if it's just hugs and a thank you or something like that, I mean, because everybody goes through crap all the time. Everybody has good days, I mean, it's just, it is what it is. Our biggest thing, we need to be there for each other and try. I mean, we're going to get our trolls. We're going to get our haters and naysayers. Lobster, I'm just teasing you. But it's, if we can all just kind of stand strong, and I think that's what we could take away from Jade as well, as just to be there for each other. We all lost her, regardless whose side of the debate you're on. We all lost her, and we have to keep that in mind.
Well, I have to tell you, I do appreciate your ability to reach out to people of all belief systems. I've never felt like you've treated me badly, or anything different, for having a different belief system, and I hope that the same has been going the other way.
Yeah.
You've always been very kind and charitable, and so I've always appreciated that. And so, very cool. Thank you so much for coming. I kind of feel a bit rusty, so I do apologize. It's like you're a guinea
That's
pig.
okay.
But I'm really happy to be back. I want to do more of these. I have a couple people already lined up to do some more of these in the future. One of them is a atheist turned Christian recently, and so that'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think so. And one of the things I wanted to say is I think where I can get along with people of various walks is I never left Christianity in anger. I just drifted away, it just wasn't me, and I had to not lie to myself and realize that it wasn't, that the issue was me. It wasn't anybody else, and it wasn't even a real issue. And I hung on to some of those teachings and I incorporated new ones. And I think if I didn't believe in any gods, I'd be a humanist. So, and again, it's about
You can be a
humanity, my
humanist.
family.
You can be a humanist and believe in God. Christian humanism was started in the 15th century. So humanism is not something that's owned by secularism. Don't ever let an atheist tell you that. Just saying.
Okay.
but but okay, well, I do want to let other people, there's other events coming on. I do want to give a shout out. Cards Against Humanity's happening. If you want in on the Cards Against Humanity game, I would probably message Vincent Jones or Shar or Jordy and see if you can get a spot in there. It should be fun. If they're using Serb's deck, I'm sure it will be obscene. Also, I do want to give a shout out. Jello here's in the chat. He's going to be one of the roasters for on Captain Osimo's channel. Captain Osimo is going to be hosting a roast of JD Kane. So if you have been wanting to tell JD to go, hey JD, go fuck yourself, now is your chance. Now is your chance vicariously. If you have a good joke, maybe you can sneak it in and have Jello or Drag tell it because they're going to be roasting JD. I hear it's going to need a trigger warning.
Probably.
I don't know how many triggers. I don't know how bad it's going to be, but I heard they're going to go ham. So if if you want to see if JD can take the heat, apparently they are turning on the heat. So that's going to be something. I mean, you've got Captain Osimo and Jello and Lenny and Sam and Drag, and I don't know if JD's going to live through it. I'm just saying. I don't know. So anyway,
I'm just thrilled that so many came together to help me out. For those who hadn't heard, I had to have a hysterectomy, and my other organs were being pulled downward. So they had to take my own ligaments and suspend everything back into place. So,
oh God.
Yeah, so I'm still in pain yet. And the surgery was October 4th. And then a week and a half ago, we had to put our young cat to sleep. And it's been one of those things. And you guys have been there for me, and I really, really appreciate it. You're a great bunch of people. And yeah, I'm crying.
Oh, I know that feeling. I cried too.
And then to listen, Digital Hammurabi's got MS. My husband has MS, and so we're dealing with that too. He doesn't get to work as much as he'd like because there's days he can't walk. So yeah, it's just I really, really appreciate it, and I want everybody to know that.
Well, I think you're highly liked in this community and well respected, and I think it has been my pleasure to do what I can to assist and to kind of boost this up.
And so, I want to see which painting of Fiona's gets auctioned off too.
Right? I'm curious to see that. So, happy birthday. I know you just had a birthday. I just had a birthday. Apparently our birthdays are a day apart. So
yes,
that's pretty cool. So
yours is on my stepdad's birthday, and I just turned 51 on the 22nd.
I just turned 39. I'm not lying. I really am on the cusp. I hope life doesn't end at 40, but you'll have to let me know. Like, it's pretty good.
No, I think it's a lot better, actually. And I'm good. 20 years younger than Von Helton, who's 55.
Oh, God. I don't know if I want to have Vaughn as my bar or Shabby or anybody, but
I think it's just because there's a part of me that has not grown up, but it's in a good way.
I've never had my children taken away from me. Ugh.
Oh, no kidding.
Okay.
Let's try, but no. Yeah.
All right. So, yes, check out the streams. There's some links in the live chat of where to go to next. And thank you so much for watching. I used to say as my final word, did you have a final word before I say my final word?
Yeah, I just hopefully Spackle will be or Char, that brain. not there. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, I'm going to be doing a live stream where I'm painting on a real deer skull.
Oh.
Tomorrow morning.
You didn't kill Bambi's mom, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, good.
And by the way, deer actually do eat baby birds to get the minerals out of the bones.
Oh my God, don't ruin this for me. They just eat berries.
My husband found that factoid out.
Now I'm terrified of deers. They're mean.
Horses and cows and sheep, most ruminants will do that.
Oh, well, I don't like birds that much anyway. Birds, you're bastards.
Yes. Okay, I'll let you finish.
Okay, so I used to end this by biting off of what's his name? Oh my goodness, I forgot his name. Whedon. And I used to say, "Don't be a dick," but I'm going to change it. And now going forward, I'm just going to say, "Be excellent to each other."
Yes.
Yes. Because Bill and Ted. All right, you guys, enjoy the streams this weekend and be kind and excellent to each other.
Blessed be everybody.